All right, so in this lesson, we are going to be dividing decimals by whole numbers. So this is the first of two videos that are going to be leading up to dividing decimals by decimals. But instead of just jumping into dividing decimals by decimals, which can be pretty complicated and overwhelming, we're going to take a step back first and divide decimals by whole numbers. So your goal here is I'm going to determine the quotient of a decimal and a whole number. And just to remind you, quotient means the answer to a division problem. All right, now before we get started, I do want to remind you about your integer rules. So please make sure that you're only watching this video if you intend to do this, if you intend to be dividing with negatives. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, please make sure that you exit the video and that you are watching the appropriate video. All right, so let's review our negative rules real quick. So when you have a positive number divided by another positive number, your result will be a positive number. When you have a negative number divided by another negative number, your result will also yield a positive number. Now on the other side, when you have a negative number divided by a positive number, your answer will be negative. And when you have a positive number divided by a negative number, your answer will be negative. So to summarize, if you have the same sign, your answer will be positive, and when you have different signs, your answer will be negative. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So there's really only two steps to dividing decimals, and it's pretty straightforward, like I said, but it's a really good way to practice before jumping into dividing decimals. So you will rarely be given a problem that looks like this. So I want to show you how you will be given the actual problem. So you'll be given the problem in this fashion: 0.24 divided by 2. And you'll have to determine which number goes into the division bracket, and it's always going to be this first number right here that goes into the division bracket. So the first number will go into the bracket. And so step one is going to be that you immediately want to take that decimal point and move it up to the roof of the bracket, like we call it, okay? So you're going to move it right straight up. And then you're going to divide as though you had absolutely no decimal point at all. And I'm going to show you how that works. So 2 divided by 0 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. Now we're going to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. Bring down the 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract. 2 minus 2 is 0. Bring down the 4. 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. And when you subtract, you have 0. So your answer to this problem is 0.12. And both numbers are positive, so your answer is positive. Now, if you've never divided this way before, and you always used the hangman method, which I believe it's called in elementary school, you need to stop and you need to go back to a different video called dividing whole numbers, and you need to watch that video, and you need to learn how to do long division. The hangman method will not work for dividing decimals. It just won't. And so you do need to learn how to do long division properly. If you think that you can pick it up pretty quickly, that's fine. You can continue watching, but if you don't think that you can, make sure that you go back and you watch the video. It's in this same unit. It's called dividing whole numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some examples. So example 1, we're already going to bring that decimal straight up to the roof, first step. And then we're going to just go ahead and simply divide. So 5 goes into 0. 0 times 5 is 0, and we're going to subtract. So 0 minus 0 is 0. Bring down the 7. 5 goes into 7 once. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract. 25 minus 25 is 0. So your answer here, positive divided by positive, is 0.15. And you don't want to leave your answer up here. You do want to box it off somewhere. Or if there's an answer line, put it on the appropriate answer line. All right, so this one up here, we're going to immediately bring that decimal point right up to the roof of the division bracket. All right, so we do have a negative here. I'm going to circle it so it reminds me to go back and look at it. So 8 goes into 0, 0 times. 8 times 0 is 0, and I'm going to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0, and I'm going to bring down the 9. 8 goes into 9 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract. 9 minus 8 is 1, and I'm going to bring down the 6. 8 goes into 16 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract. 16 minus 16 is 0. Now, I have 0.12, but I also have a negative or positive divided by a negative. So my answer is going to be negative 0.12. Okay. All right, next example, I'm going to bring my decimal point right up to the roof. 3 goes into 2, 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0, and I'm going to subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2, and I'm going to bring down the 5. 3 goes into 25 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract. 25 minus 24 is 1. Bring down the 2. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract. 12 minus 12 is 0. Nothing left to bring down. My answer here, positive divided by a positive, is 0.84. Okay. Now here I have a negative divided by a negative, and I'm going to bring my decimal straight up to the roof. 6 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 6 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1, and I'm going to bring down the 3. 6 goes into 13 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. 13 minus 12 is 1. Bring down the 8. 6 goes into 18 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. Subtract. 18 minus 18 is 0. Nothing left to bring down. I have a negative divided by a negative, which is going to be a positive 0.23. All right, I have two positives here. I'm going to bring the decimal straight up to the roof. 5 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 5 is 0. Subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring down the 7. 5 goes into 17 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. 17 minus 15 is 2. Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract. 25 minus 25 is 0. Nothing else to bring down. Positive divided by a positive is a positive, and so your answer is 0.35. All right, I'm going to circle my negative there. Bring the decimal straight up to the roof. 4 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. I'm going to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. Bring down the 7. 4 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3. I'm going to bring down the 2. 4 goes into 32 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. Subtract. 32 minus 32 is 0. Nothing else to bring down. Now I have a positive divided by a negative, and so my answer is negative 0.18. All right, so here I have a positive divided by a positive, and I'm going to bring the decimal straight up to the roof. 6 goes into 2 0 times. 0 times 6 is 0. Subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2. Bring down the 7. 6 goes into 27 4 times. 4 times 6 is 24. subtract. 27 minus 24 is 3. Bring down the other 3. 6 goes into 33 5 times. 5 times 6 is 30. Subtract. 33 minus 30 is 3. Now, I don't have anything else to bring down, but I cannot have a remainder. That's the whole point of dividing decimals. So what I do is I add a 0 onto the end and I bring it down. I can add on as many zeros as I need to in order to finish solving the problem. So I'm going to add that 0 and I'm going to bring it down. 6 goes into 30 5 times. 5 times 6 is 30. 30 minus 30 is 0. And I have a positive divided by a positive, and so my answer is 0.455. All right. I'm going to circle my negative right there. Bring my decimal point straight up to the roof. 4 goes into 9 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down my 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. Subtract. 16 minus 16 is 0. Bring down the 5. 4 goes into 5 1 time. 4 times 1 is 4. Subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. Again, I need to add a 0 and bring it down. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Again, I need to add another 0 and bring it down. 4 goes into 20 5 times, and 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract, and I get 0. I have a positive divided by a negative here, and so my answer is negative 2.4125. Okay. All right. Now here I'm adding in a variable, so I'm going to ask you to evaluate 0.435 divided by a. And in this case, I have two different values for a. Here I have a equaling 3, and here I have a equaling negative 15. Keep in mind that whenever you substitute a value in for a variable or in for a letter, as you know it right now, you should do your best to always keep it in parentheses, especially when you have negatives involved. So this one right here is going to be 0.435 divided by 3, and this one here is going to be 0.435 divided by negative 15. And then we'll go ahead and solve these. So 0.435, bring my decimal point up to the roof. 3 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0. Subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. Bring down the 4. 3 goes into 4 1 time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. Bring down the 3. 3 goes into 13 4 times. 3 times 4 is 12. Subtract. 13 minus 12 is 1. Bring down the 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 minus 15 is 0. Now we have a positive divided by a positive, so our answer is 0.145. All right, over here, we're going to have negative 15 on the outside and 0.435 on the inside. Bring the decimal point straight up to the roof. So 15 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 15 is 0. Subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. Bring down the 4. 15 goes into 4 0 times. 0 times 15 is 0. Subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. Bring down the 3. 15 goes into 43 2 times. 2 times 15 is 30. Subtract. 43 minus 30 is 13. Bring down the 5. 15 goes into 135 9 times. 9 times 15 is 135. Subtract, and you end up with 0. Here you have a positive divided by a negative, so your answer is going to be negative 0.029. All right, and we have a couple word problems here. So Ms. Eckerson purchased 8 t-shirts for the volleyball team. The total cost of the t-shirts was $70.56. How much did each t-shirt cost? Even though we didn't formally start word problems with this lesson, we are going to use our annotation rules. So I'm going to highlight the question. How much should each t-shirt cost? And my operation, the hint of the operation is right here when it says each t-shirt. That means I'm going to be dividing to figure out the total cost, which means I'm going to be dividing the cost. So it's going to be 70.56 divided by 8. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my problem here. 8 is going to be on the outside. 70.56 on the inside. Bring my decimal to the roof. 8 goes into 7 0 times. 8 times 0 is 0. Subtract. 7 minus 0 is 0. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 70 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. Subtract. 70 minus 64 is 6. Bring down the 5. 8 goes into 64 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. 65 minus 64 is 1. Bring down the 6. 8 goes into 16 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract and you get 0. So each t-shirt was $8.82. Next word problem, dance lessons cost $198.75 for 15 classes. What is the cost of one class? So I'm going to highlight my question. What is the cost of one class? And so my operation is going to be hinted at here when it says cost and one class. So I'm going to be dividing the cost in order to find one class. So it's going to be 198 divided by 75. Oh, sorry, 198.75 divided by 15, excuse me. All right, so let me pull the page up a little bit here. So the 15 is going to go on the outside. 198.75 on the inside, and immediately bring my decimal point to the roof. 15 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 15 is 0. Subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring down the 9. 15 goes into 19 one time. 1 times 15 is 15. 19 minus 15 is 4. Bring down the 8. 15 goes into 48 3 times. 3 times 15 is 45. 48 minus 45 is 3. Bring down the 7. 15 goes into 37 2 times. 2 times 15 is 30. 30 minus 37, or sorry, 37 minus 30 is 7. Bring down the 5. And 15 goes into 75 5 times. And 5 times 15 is 75. Subtract, and you end up with 0. So each class costs $13.25. All right, that is the end of dividing decimals by whole numbers. Once you have mastered this, we can move on to dividing decimals by decimals.